Hello, welcome again to the Campfire Podcast. Today, we are joined by writer, director, producer, owner of TEMPE Entertainment, J.R. Bookwalter. How you doing today, J.R.?
Good, how are you guys?
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you for joining us today.
No problem.
So, I'm going to fire some questions at you. I grew up watching a lot of your films. I was a big VHS collector back in the day, and I had come across, I think I saw Robot Ninja first.
Oh, jeez.
And I was blown away by it. I was like, oh, this is nuts. And then I found Dead Next Door, and I really enjoyed Dead Next Door. Now, with Dead Next Door, it felt like, when you made that, like it was almost a loving homage to what you loved in horror movies yourself. Like, a lot of the character names were named after, horror directors. You had, Savini, Raimi, those kinds of things. Is that something like you were intentionally doing? Like you wanted to cram everything you loved about horror into this movie?
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially a love letter to the stuff that I grew up with. I mean, so obviously George Romero influenced me, but there's also certain shots and certain bits that can, you can easily see John Carpenter influences or Sam Raimi influences or Wes Craven influences or whatever. I mean, it was basically a pastiche of all the stuff that I sort of was raised on. And it was all intentional. The names and all that stuff, I had actually kind of lifted that from when Fred Decker did it in Night of the Creeps.
Really?
I kind of ratcheted it up, an extra notch, I guess.
Yeah, because everybody had, there was even Commander Carpenter and, and obviously the cult leader character is named after Jim Jones.
Yeah, so practically as time has gone on, that's a reference that seems to be lost on a younger generation. I mean, I was a kid when that happened.
With the Jonestown.
And that was sort of it's an odd influence to have, but I was very fascinated by that whole thing. So
what's interesting is...
it has gone on. That's like a lost reference. People don't quite get that. So it's only people of a certain age, I guess.
What's interesting is I didn't get it as a kid, and I got it now as an adult.
Right.
It
has more impact when you realize that that's where it came from.
Although
we certainly didn't. I think Jim Jones was more reprehensible human being than the Reverend Jones is.
Yeah, I think your character Reverend Jones is at least in his mind feeling he was doing right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You were very young when you made that movie. How old were you?
Well, I mean, depends on which year you're talking about, because I started it when I was 18. I basically started writing scripts when I was 18, but most of it was shot when I was 19, turning 20, and then I think I was 22 or 23 by the time it was done. It was like 4 years of of production, and then it took another year before it was released. So it was a 5-year.
It was a labor of love.
It was a labor of love, yes. Well, it has to be, because when you're working, there wasn't like a paycheck at the end of every week making a movie. It was basically
my co-host did the same thing. He made a movie really recently called Witchtown out of pocket, and very similar to how you started out making films.
Took about almost 4 years. We spent about $8,000. We were only supposed to spend about $2,000 on it, and it just...
Exactly.
yeah. But we got it done, and it's out there, so...
It's a brutal... People don't understand what the tenacity that it takes to get through something that long, because, I hear people go, oh, we shot for 10 days, and it took 2 months before it was finished, and it was such a nightmare. It's like, what? You kidding me?
That sounds like a nap to what you went through.
Oh, that sounds great, yeah.
Yeah. Did you find it to be a daunting task to take on your first feature film at such a young age?
No, and I think the reason was I was not good at taking no for an answer. So any obstacles that were in my way, to me, it was like, okay, there's a brick wall in front of me. I just have to figure out how to go around it or climb over it or whatever. It just, when you're younger, you don't have the life experience to know that you shouldn't be doing something like putting zombies on the White House fence, for example. You just decide, I'm going to do this, and now I have to figure out how I'm going to do this, and that's it. If I had done that movie when I'm 52 now, if I had done it now, you would be thinking more practically, like, oh, we have to have this, we can't do it without this, there's safety considerations or whatever. You don't think about that stuff when you're 19.
In that, would you consider yourself sort of a guerrilla filmmaker? Just go there, get the shot. We don't have permits. We don't have anything. We're just going to get the shot and get out before the cops show up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think at that age I necessarily viewed it that way, but it was more. But they obviously that's exactly what it is. It's more that film was made. It's not that we didn't get permission. You know, we there were certain locations we didn't get permission. We had permission for the
like the White House. Like the White House, I'm sure you didn't have permission to do that.
That's the one exception. Well, it's funny because we actually did. I did consult with their film office down there, like probably a year before we actually shot it. And they were like, well, it's going to cost this much, this much, this much. You know, it was like insane. It was like beyond our budget at the time. And they ended up by saying, and you absolutely can't have anybody on the White House fence. So I was like, okay, well, that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to find a way around this. But yeah, I mean, we were responsible enough, like the other stuff we actually, like we had zombies on Main Street in downtown Akron, that stuff. We actually had, insurance, to protect the city, and we had to pay for police officers and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't totally guerrilla, but it was. I mean, the movie was, and that was the spirit that, they made under.
I've heard a rumor that some of the funding came from Sam Raimi. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like the worst kept secret probably in underground movie history. It's right there on the IMDb. People ask me, "Is that really true?" It's like, well, just go look it up. It's it's on the IMDb. It must be true.
Well, in the supplementals, he was always referred to as the mystery guy from Michigan.
Master Cylinder, which was how he wanted to be credited. I mean, that's really just out of respect, because once the cat was out of the bag, I mean, Fangoria magazine years ago had done this big 4-page spread on the movie, and they basically completely outed him, and not only outed him, but did a whole sidebar on Scott Spiegel, who was a colleague of his at the time.
Yeah.
And, where everybody's just talking openly about, oh, Sam this, Sam that, and Sam was not happy about it, because at the time he was in the process of trying to get Darkman made. Okay. And his career was going in a completely different direction, and he wanted to help me make the movie, but he didn't necessarily.
He wanted.
So he didn't. The thing he told me is he didn't want it to become like Dario Argento with Dawn of the Dead thing. When Dario Argento financed Dawn of the Dead, in international circles, his name sort of overshadowed Romero's.
Or like how they do with like Eli Roth nowadays. His name's attached to a bunch of movies that he has nothing, Eli Roth presents or
directly to Demons. That was the one, because that was like Dario Argento's name was splashed above the title, and Lamberto Bava was just sort of like down there in the credit block. So he didn't want me to be overshadowed by somebody better known than him, which of course I respected. But then we turned around and blabbed our mouths to a local producer, a local reporter here,
and it spread like wildfire.
Yeah, well, I mean, we knew he was going to do this Fangoria article, but maybe we didn't realize the impact it was going to have, I guess.
Was Sam okay with that?
The funny thing, I love to read the rumors over the years, because there's some I know some rumors said that like Sam made the movie, like that I'm not a real person, that Sam actually made the movie just as a goof or a lark or something, and it's funny to hear how people contort those rumors.
So like you were like a pen name, like when a director puts on a different name for a project.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not. I think people know better now. They've made more movies. But
I believe you've done that a couple times, haven't you?
Yes, Lance Randus.
Randus.
Yeah.
That's one of the few movies I have not seen. Was Zombie Cop? Yeah, I haven't seen Zombie Cop.
You're not seeing much, really. He's surprised so many people actually like come up to me and go, "Oh, this is my favorite of all your movies." It's like,
it's a killer name.
I can't claim the title. That was Dave Dakota at Cinema Home Video. He basically threw it out and said, "I want to make these two movies, Zombie Cop and Kingdom of the Vampire." And I'm like, "Okay, well, come up with."
I did watch Kingdom of the Vampire for the first time recently. I had put an order in with you guys for the closeout sale. Okay. And it was one of the few that had slipped through my radar when I was younger.
So you probably had a pretty good nap.
I really enjoyed the mother character in there. She was so over the top.
Very over the top.
I was like, oh my god, this is the worst mother on the planet. Like, any little thing this poor kid did would send her into this spiral of screaming violence.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is that there actually are some mothers like that, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
That's the scary part.
Now, back to Dead Next Door. Was it an initial success upon release, or did it take a while to get a cult following?
Well, it's never been financially. It's never been a success. I mean, it's the same kind of story that you hear about, like Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all these movies that you consider classics. They were sort of a slow burn. They didn't really make any money at all in the beginning. And in the case of Dead Next Door, has been so shoddily distributed over the years. I mean, I took it over years ago, but it had a reputation because a lot of people got a hold of a bootleg VHS or whatever.
Yeah.
And sort of made a minor splash in that regard, but financially, it's never been a huge movie.
I actually bought my VHS off of you at a horror. I actually bought my VHS off of you at a horror convention once.
Is that right?
When I was like 15, yeah.
Wow.
You signed it in a silver marker for me.
Yeah,
Very good.
I have a question. So, I mean, what would you... So I know that the margin for success in the film industry is very small. And what would you consider a success? Like, after making a movie, what would you consider the elements going into to make it a success?
Like getting your budget back, or
getting your budget back, making a profit, getting recognition in a way you haven't before.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're. When I was younger, I didn't care so much about the financial end of it. I was just happy to get a movie out and have it, hopefully be well regarded and get another gig, make another
Right.
movie. Now, as I've gotten older, and especially when you have a mortgage payment and family to pay for, then it becomes like, well, okay, now it's got to be about money, because you have to have the money. So, I mean, I guess it just depends on which point in my life you ask me that question. But they're both valid, and some people you don't mind, but it's like there's been these points in my life where I've been broke, and then it's like, well, financial success would be nice right now.
Yeah.
I've probably made more money in my 33 years of doing this doing post-production on other people's movies than I ever have from making my own movies.
Wow.
Painted in perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
I know you do like a lot of producing of other people's films too. One of my favorite was
not so much anymore, but I have in the past. Yeah.
One of my favorites was Bloodletting. It was like a poor man's natural born killers.
It's called Bloodletting?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
And I really enjoyed the films.
Kind of thing.
I really enjoyed the films you did with Trent Hogg as well.
Yeah, that stuff was for Full Moon. Yeah, Trent was great to work with.
How did you end up hooking up with Full Moon Entertainment? I know you did a few movies for them.
I sold my soul to the devil. No, I decided in the early '97, I guess, to move to sort of take my act on the road and move from Akron, Ohio to LA, and didn't really have a game plan. I had licensed Bloodletting to another distributor, which was the latest movie that we made, and I had a magazine called Alternative Cinema that I sold to another company. So I had a little bit of scratch to sort of get me there. And I had made all these movies previous for Dave Dakota, and Dave Dakota had kind of gone back to work for Charlie Band and Full Moon right after the Paramount era had sort of folded, and they were trying to figure out a way to make movies for cheaper. And Dave happened to be around when I was doing post-production on a film called Sleepwalker. I was sort of overseeing it for a couple of guys from Wisconsin.
The Stephen King movie?
What's that?
The Stephen King movie?
Not the Stephen King movie.
The cat people?
This one was actually really
That's what I thought.
No, not that one. The Sleepwalker singular.
Okay.
That was released as Vengeance of the Dead a couple of years after that. By
Okay.
Full Moon. Anyways, he saw what we were doing, and that was a 16 millimeter movie, and somehow he suddenly took this post-production stuff more seriously, because I was just doing it in my apartment. And we had rented some gear or whatever we needed to do it. And next thing I know, he comes calling and said, "Hey, I'm going to make this movie for Charlie called Shrieker. We're going to shoot it in 35 anamorphic. What would you think about doing the editing and the post sound work on it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I got a nice, decent paycheck out of it. But I was some sort of mysterious guy in North Hollywood, and Full Moon didn't really know who I was until we went. When the edit was done, we went to sort of show it to Charlie Band and his father, Albert Band, who was involved in the company still at that point. And that's when they actually met me and saw my work, and they were so happy with it that they said, "This is great." And Charlie, I remember Dakota said after we did the sound mix for that movie, which was literally just like a little 8-track sound mix. It wasn't anything fancy, but he put it up on his big, sound system in his office and was floored at how good the sound. He's like, "This is the way we should do everything from now on." So eventually I wound up going in and working full time for them as their post-production supervisor for a couple of years. before that led me back to making movies.
And that led into being able to do a few projects for them.
Yeah, I did Witch House 2 and then later produced a bunch of stuff for them as well.
Was Mega Scorpions one of those for Full Moon?
Actually, that was the last one of those. And that has a whole haggard history of its own. When I shot it, it was called Stingers.
Okay.
Later it was Deadly Stingers, and I guess now it's called Mega Scorpions. I refuse to refer to it by that name.
kind of like how they labeled Ozone Street Zombies.
Well, that was actually a conscious thing because Charlie and I said, hey, I got all these old movies. You want to do something with them? And he's like, hey, we could sell this to Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. So he just sort of remarketed them. And we actually made some decent dough on that. So that was actually a wise move. I mean, creatively, it was sort of like, I hate to see my stuff go out there under another name, but hey, you can't argue with the results.
I always thought that Ozone was a much better name. That's actually my personal favorite here.
Yeah, my Street Zombies is so like on point, I guess. It's not even a zombie movie, first of all.
No, it's not. It's more of a kind of like a almost. It almost had like a post-apocalyptic but not apocalyptic vibe with the junkies and like the scene where they had the razor blade bats and their.
That was actually a lot of that stuff came from Dave Wagner, who wrote the script. When he was writing it, he was watching like James Bond movies and Cronenberg movies and David Lynch movies, and he had all these everything. As he was writing different scenes, the script sort of went in a different direction.
All that kind of bled in.
It all just sort of blended into, you can look at specific bits of that movie and say, hey, that kind of feels like this, that kind of feels like that. I mean, I tried to make it, when I directed it, I tried to have its own cohesive, entirety as a movie. But yeah, there's certainly, that's like more than any other movie I probably made, that's like a melting pot of many different influences.
They had a very sleek look to it. It had almost a different feel than some of the other movies you had made.
Well, that was intentional because I had just come off of 6 really not good shot-on-video movies for Cinema Home Video, starting with Kingdom of the Vampire until the ill-fated Humanoids from Atlantis. And I had something to prove, essentially. I was like, I still believe in shot-on-video. I think you can. It doesn't require a lot of money. I think the formula was to be able to spend more time to do something with it. So I kind of set out to like go back to my roots, and like we had crane shots and dolly shots.
Yeah.
And I had a guy came in from New York that owned a Steadicam rig, so we had Steadicam shots with this little Super VHS-C camera. I made every effort I could, whatever I had at my disposal,
to make it look a little sleeker,
a bigger movie, and look and sound like a bigger movie.
You could definitely tell you guys spent a lot more time on atmospheric lighting too.
Yeah, and that was, almost all of that was me. There were whole days where it was just James Black, the lead actor, and I shooting. Like, he would help me set up lights or whatever, and it was just the two of us making this movie. I had a crew through most of it, but there was a lot of times where it was just like, nope, nobody showed up today, so we're just gonna make a movie.
Make it work. We do a lot of that in the podcast. We make it work.
Yeah, that's our go-to. I have a question for just general filmmakers, other filmmakers who have asked me this question, and I've just heard this asked a lot. With all the streaming services and everything that's offered today, is physical distribution still the best way to go about selling and making a profit for your film, actually getting it printed onto some kind of physical media? Or do you think that kind of selling it to a streaming service and making the best out of it that you can would be the way to go nowadays?
No, I think there's neither one of those routes are viable right now. We're at a real impasse where the physical is waning, and it's, in some respects for certain types of movies, it's out completely. I mean, the nice thing is I deal with a distributor who does strictly MOD, which is manufactured on demand, and that I think that's really going to be the future for this stuff. I mean, I know the diehard collectors don't like it because the discs are burned instead of replicated. You see it on website forums, people go, I don't want it, it's not replicated. But you know what? In a couple of years, that's all there's going to be.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be replicating discs anymore. Even bigger companies like Shout Factory have started dabbling in it, at least, because they realize that this is, the costs of replicating a disc are so high, and for certain titles are never going to sell more than they sell. So it's and then don't get me started on streaming. Unfortunately, there's streaming sounds great because everybody's like, I pay $10 a month for Netflix and I get all this buffet of movies. But the problem with that is the budgets are shrinking constantly,
Yeah.
and they can only pick up so much stuff. And frankly, their interest is not even in picking up movies. Their interest is in making their own movies.
Yeah, you're right.
A few more years, you're not going to find any catalog stuff on there. It's going to be they're going to be like an HBO, where it's like we have.
It does feel like a lot of these streaming services pick up as much content as they can, without even really caring about the quality or anything, just so they just have this mass library to draw in viewers and money.
That's how they start, but then I think they realize that the real money is going to be in original content.
Yeah, it seems like almost every day there's a new Netflix movie, Netflix original, almost every day.
They amass a pool of content and then start refining it based on, I don't know, algorithms, which are showing what people are watching.
Yeah,
and
that's it. Well, just yesterday on Thanksgiving, I was watching TV with my kids, and I saw some commercial with Kurt Russell playing Santa Claus and something.
On Netflix.
It must be coming to the theaters. Nope. Here it's a Netflix movie.
Wow.
Like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Kurt Russell's doing a Netflix movie?
As Santa, no less.
Yeah, as Santa Claus. So,
I mean, even they're really getting A-list talent now. You can tell that's really the direction, because I mean they just put out a Coen Brothers movie this week.
Really?
Yeah, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay.
The problem is it's that all their money's being sunk into that stuff. There's no money to. I mean, like when Netflix started their whole streaming service, it was very guerrilla. All my stuff was on there. Everything I distributed was on there. But people were like, I don't understand. Like, what is all this stuff? Like, what is Filthy McNasty? What is I mean, people were watching it. I was getting some nice checks for it. But then eventually they hooked up with stars and started to get Hollywood movies. And then they realized, oh, wait a minute, this is what people want to see. So then they gradually, like the independents were like, here's the door, please leave. We don't need you anymore.
Let's talk Robot Ninja. You're right now you're putting together a 3-disc 2K restoration Ultimate Edition Blu-ray, correct?
Yes. Well, the restoration is done. Right now I'm just focused on getting the stuff done for the Blu-ray.
What is being included on that? Like, what can fans look forward to that release? Aside from the better picture quality and sound and.
Yeah, I mean, well, the movie itself, it's night and day from. If anybody's ever seen the VHS version,
I own it.
you must go give it another shot when this thing comes out, because it's literally like a whole different. I've shown it to people that did not like the original film, and they were blown away when they saw it with new completely cleaned up picture and 5.1 surround sound and everything.
You didn't add anything to it though. It's just been cleaned up and everything.
Well, I mean, there's new titles, because the original titles were done like on a Commodore Amiga 500, and they're not H. I can convert them to HD, but I was.
Yes.
Oh, jeez. When can we expect the release of Robot Ninja, the 3-disc Ultimate Edition?
I was hoping to get it out by the end of the year, but it just hasn't worked out because I'm still scrounging up extras. But I'm hoping by like the end of February at the latest. It's just going to depend on how fast the replicator is once I get the disc master set on.
Are you doing pre-sales or pre-orders or anything?
Yeah, well, at least from now till the end of the year, you can get it through the Tempe Video Ticktail, tempevideo.ticktail.com.
Okay.
Pre-order it through there. After that, I'm not sure. It'll be available somewhere.
So when I ordered you had an online sale recently, which is still going on.
Yeah, through the end of the year. Yep.
I ordered a stack of movies from you because I had them on VHS and it was nice to have them on DVD. The same day I got those in the mail, you had made a huge announcement that you were shutting down Tempe for good.
Yeah.
What prompted that? What's the future hold? Are you just going to liquidate the catalog and be done with it, or are you going to try to sell it?
Well, I'm going to retain the owner. I will always retain the ownership of the films that I made and produced. I'm not, those aren't necessarily going anywhere. Although they may not be available, and I can't guarantee they'll be available in physical form after this, because I've got storage rooms here full of discs that I'm still trying to unload.
Yeah.
So rather than be buried with those and make a coffin out of them, I figured it was time to do a clearance sale and get that stuff out of there. And I know there are a lot of people who prefer DVD, so that's why we sort of framed it as, hey, if you want this stuff, get it now, because I can't guarantee, we can't guarantee it'll be available after. It's basically really, I think it's just after 33 years, of operating as as most of that time has been as Tempe Entertainment. I just am looking to sort of put the old stuff behind me and move on to new adventures, I guess, for lack of a better. I can't say exactly what that's going to entail just yet, but I'm sort of trying to extract myself. I never wanted to be a distributor. Let's put it that way.
You wanted to be a filmmaker.
Years ago, after taking some abuse early on with my first few movies, as far as being a filmmaker, going through the meat grinder of being of dealing with distributors originally, I was not happy with the experience, and I thought, well, let me just do it myself and take it under my own wing, and I'll have nobody to blame. I can only look in the mirror and point the finger at myself.
Yeah,
distributed, right? And it sounded easier than it was. And of course, back then, you're talking about a time where you could sell VHS tapes. You didn't have to have a UPC barcode. There was no Amazon.com. There was no, there was the way you were making the movies was very underground, but the way you were selling them was also very underground to a large degree. So I started that, and then what I quickly realized is if you want to actually have a business and be taken seriously, you need a catalog of titles. Yeah. So that was sort of what led to acquiring films. I of course knew many other filmmakers who were also desperate to get their films distributed, and they trusted me since I was a filmmaker and I was doing it myself. So it just became like it sort of snowballed into something that I didn't necessarily want to do, but wound up doing for 3 decades.
Almost out of necessity, huh?
Yeah. I mean, and then I wanted to do it to so that my own films had a safe haven to be sold through. Yeah. But then you wind up focusing less on making your own movies and more on just running
a business.
And it's a different experience. So I'm kind of after all these years have kind of said, look, I don't want to necessarily do this part anymore. I'm going to, hopefully entrust it to people that are better equipped to handle it. There's parts I'm not to say that I didn't like all of it. I mean, the marketing movie there's many different aspects to it, and coming up with the campaigns and things like that. I mean, I like that part of it. I like designing box covers and things like that, but I can't say I'm not the best person to do it necessarily. I was the cheapest person to do it to pay myself. But,
that's very much how we operate.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's really what it is. I mean, it's just it's not some. I think a few people I've seen online were like, "Oh, there must be something horrible going on." No, it's nothing horrible. It's just time to move on.
Yeah, you've been doing it 30 plus years now.
Yeah, and people are asking me, well, you're going to make more movies. I don't know yet. I have to it's not behind me yet. It's still very much on top of me.
You're at a point of transition in your life where you're putting the past behind you and you're still figuring out what the next phase is going to be for J.R. Bookwalter.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't be. At age 52, you would think that, I always thought...
They say that's the new 20.
As you get older, but no, it's not when you're doing this kind of thing. That never happened. It was probably easier, years ago, because when you're younger, you can sort of deflect the bad stuff and keep forging on. But that gets harder to do as you get older, of course.
I feel Mr. Biggins here is going through a lot of that with marketing his film and selling his film, and
there's somewhat of that. It's once you get done with it's just what we've been talking about this whole time. You have this product, you spent so long working on it, crafting it, shaping it, making it what it is, and it's like you don't want to give it away for nothing.
Right, and that's essentially what you're being asked to do in the current market. There's no, nobody, very few people will pay you anything. I mean, if they pay you anything, it's pocket change.
It's like how they tell local bands, like, oh, you're playing for exposure, we're not going to pay you.
But exposure doesn't, it's not going to put food on the table.
No.
That's the, it's like,
or recoup what you put in.
No.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword because it's like nobody's necessarily asking for any of these. Nobody's ever asked for any of the movies that I've made. I always just made what I wanted to make. It's not like I can't say that there's even a demand necessarily for this kind of stuff that I make. Although it's found an audience over time, thankfully. But if you're doing it, you have to sort of do it because you love to do it. Yeah. And hope that all that other stuff will work itself out. It doesn't always. I've made plenty of movies. There's a movie I made, one of the first features shot on mini DV called Polymorph back in the...
I own Polymorph. I enjoy Polymorph a lot.
It's like, I've run across so many people that say, oh, I love that movie. And I'm like,
I loved it.
Because I have thousands of copies of it that I can't give away. It's just one of those things that it's like, I think in the case of that movie, the title was sort of iffy. The marketing campaign was never great. It's like, there's other obstacles for that movie beyond the movie. But when people watch it, they sort of, they like it, or they like it, or they don't like it, whatever. But a lot of people like it, but it's just not enough people that like it to make
I felt it had almost a Predator with a criminal, like a crime movie element, kind of hybrid mix to it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Well, that actually, the movie we wound up making was not the original treatment that I had in mind. When I did it originally, there was the character of Tarper, who was played by Sasha Graham, the girl that's in the cabin out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Originally a guy that's sort of like a redneck hillbilly that's sort of like killing campers that happen by him, and then he's throwing their bodies in the swamp, and this alien infestation gets into the swamp. And I had this big scene at the end where all these bodies that he's killed come back out of the swamp and all that. But what happened with that movie is that was kind of plucked from my library of ideas, and by Ariana Albright, who was the star of it, and James L. Edwards, who was the co-star and wrote the script. And I basically gave James Edwards the script, the treatment, and said, well, go turn this into something. And he added all that sort of Tarantino-esque crime element, which I like. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not lamenting it. It's just a very different movie than I originally.
It does feel like a hybrid movie.
It became that sort of crime drama, sci-fi crime drama, whatever. So.
Who are some filmmakers you enjoy nowadays? Who do you like to watch? Who would you suggest to check out?
Well, I'll tell you because it's fresh in my mind, because I just saw it a couple weeks ago, that and I'm going to screw his name up. The guy who made Mandy I thought was very impressive.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Mandy was fantastic.
Panos Cosmatos.
Cosmatos. It's something very Greek.
Well, it's the son of the guy who made Rambo 2 or 3, one of those. George
Really?
Cosmatos, yeah, that's his son, that's his kid.
Wow.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I was blown away by Mandy.
The fact that movie was made in the year 2018 just blows my mind, because it's nothing like. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. A friend of mine had referred it to me and said, "Hey, you got to check this out." I'm not saying that I'm necessarily following. I mean, I'm curious to see the other. I guess he's got an earlier film as well, but that one sticks in my head.
He made Beyond the Black Rainbow, right?
I think so.
I've seen that. That one, that's a trip, man.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an out there flick.
Let's say that the guy doesn't have an original vision.
Yeah, he definitely has his own vision. You know what? I'm always a sucker for any movie that'll let Nick Cage go full Nick Cage.
Yeah, that's like the best performance that guy's done in years.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the preview for it, and I was like, all right, I got to see this goddamn movie.
It's wild. If you haven't seen it, you definitely have to see it.
I don't think he has, but
I have not yet. No.
I have.
Yeah, it's not, but because you'd be reacting more differently if you had seen it.
Yeah,
it's an experience, really. I mean, that movie, more than a lot of stuff.
You can't really compare it to anything. I mean, it feels almost like a fever dream. You know, like the pacing of it, the lighting, the motorcycle gang. Oh.
Yeah, no, it's its own animal for sure. The other one I could say is, and I'm going to screw his name up. His name's Craig something, and I should know this, and I can't. The guy who made Brawl and Cell Block. No.
Oh, and Bone Tomahawk, and he just made the newest Puppet Master movie.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah.
I believe it's The Littlest Reich.
The Littlest Reich, yeah. I still haven't seen that yet either. I need to soon.
I myself am a big fan. I like those 70s style throwback genre films that he's doing, and he is awesome at dialogue. The dialogue in Bone Tomahawk is just fantastic. And Kurt Russell.
It's funny that those two movies that I'm citing are very similar, because they are throwbacks to sort of a different era, I guess.
I think that's what we need nowadays in a world overbloated with remakes and not a lot of original ideas.
Superheroes and
I mean, they are throwback films, but they are definitely their own animal. I mean, I would have never taken Vince Vaughn for such a super badass as he turned out to be in Rumble and Cell Block 99.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I love that they went and hired the OJs to do like a 60s style funk soundtrack.
Right.
You hear the soundtrack, you think it's these old songs, and it's not. I've actually been trying my hardest to get a copy of that soundtrack because I love it so much.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm not sure.
It's definitely worth checking out. It's not really strictly horror, but it's definitely.
I think
it's very, very throwback to the 70s.
Yeah, the Cell Block is definitely more of a crime thriller, and Bone Tomahawk turns into a horror movie at the end.
Right.
Like cannibals in the West, right?
It's like they're like a cannibalistic tribe, but they seem to have some form of they're more than just human. They have like tusks.
Okay.
And they like howl like
they're
wolves.
Like mutants of some sort of.
But they're very humanoid.
Okay. I still have to watch that one too.
Watch his movies, you can definitely see that he's a fan of the old school horror stuff.
I let this guy borrow this movie about like four weeks ago, and I don't think he's watched it yet.
I've been on the road. There's been I'm getting to it.
Well, with that, we'll...
movies, that's part of the problem. There's so many movies nowadays. It's like, how can you literally...
even keep up, yeah.
Truly.
You got to sift through all the crappy, shark movies and all the other genres out there to find these diamonds in the rough.
How many times are sharks going to get caught in a tornado in this day and age is what I want to know.
I mean, we reached levels of ludicrousy with these shark movies, I think.
Well, Tara Reid's got to do something in this day and age. She can't just sit around and do drugs and get drunk all day anymore.
Not anymore, no. It's not the 90s anymore.
They're making money for somebody, so God bless
the
them.
Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
So probably the only one of those movies that's making money right now.
Yeah, I'd say.
It's like, who do we got? Lorenzo Lamas? What's the director we got? Just stick somebody from, can you push that close?
Not my cup of tea.
Yeah. Which I did find interesting that when I saw the repackaging for your last film that you said was originally Tire Stiggers, is that they gave it almost that Sharknado style cover.
Well, I think that came out on Amazon streaming was it right after Sharknado or right before that whole thing sort of exploded? But
yeah.
It's not really, I mean, it's more of I almost hesitate to say that movie's more like a polymorph sort of thing without the gang aspects.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of bookend movies. One's got giant scorpions and the other one's got aliens, but it really aren't aliens.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time, and
absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, JR.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to say about the production company or anything before we log off?
No, I mean, I would like to thank everybody who's supported Tempe Entertainment over the years, and whether you've bootlegged a movie, picked it up somewhere, gone to a convention. I have a lot of people come up to me. I sign stuff at conventions, like you had said your VHS tape was. I mean, it's very heartening. It's sort of emotional to some degree because you see when we announced this, a lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me! This is it was like a death in the family. It's like my losing a child or something." It's like so many people were affected by this that you don't even realize.
But by the same token, it's not like they don't have the opportunity. Like you're giving them. What I think is really neat is that you're like, you love these movies, you want them. Well, here, $1. Here you go.
Yeah.
Get all the movies that
sort of giving them away. That's about, which is practically what we're doing. But it's just the movies themselves will live on in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just streaming or they'll be available somewhere, somehow. At least the films that I've made, there's a certain chunk of the catalog that's going to go elsewhere. But I mean, and people have kept these things alive. It's amazing to look on like Instagram and Facebook and see how many people post pictures of their old VHS tapes or their DVDs or whatever. It's very gratifying to see that.
There's been a resurgence with that of the photograph, people taking pictures of the collections and everything and posting them and comparing and arguing and.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I would have never in a million years, all that VHS stuff that we put on, I would have never thought that anybody would still remember that stuff. So it's great. Somebody besides me remembers it.
All right, JR, thank you again for joining us and taking time out of your day for talking to us. And anything you'd like to say before we go?
Hey, everybody keep watching this stuff and enjoying it over the years. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, JR. Have a good one.
Thanks, JR. We appreciate it.